How did you decide on the wardrobe and Malky's very distinctive coat and swagger and style?
You know, actors are very happy when they get something cool to wear, you know, because that was a pretty cool coat. So I felt like suddenly I got something I could use that gave me a character, you know, that kind of. And then I had this denim jacket on underneath and a tartan scarf, I remember. And Gillies wanted me to keep my hair long. So I felt like at that point that I kind of just externally, because I mean I'm not from Glasgow and I didn't know anything about these gangs, and I think just having that sort of brilliant coat really helped me just have the confidence. Because I think playing a role like that, you have to have bags of confidence, you know. So I think that coat really helped me. And also I remember Gillies telling me that at some point, we were talking about Chinatown, and remember that, Gillies? I do remember this, and the idea that Malky eventually ends up kind of like Jack Nicholson with the big plaster and all mashed up. And I remember feeling quite secure with that because I knew that would give me another thing to play with and something strong visually. To sort of hide behind, you know.
About that costume thing, you know, we wanted the two gangs there to have a very different look, because it's like, to Billy and I, these costumes are totally authentic for the 60s. Somebody else, though, coming from a slightly different area, could say, no, that's wrong. Because there was so many things going on at that point. You know, the mods in England, it was very kind of like, it had to be just so. That wasn't the case in Glasgow, you know. But a lot of kids would go and get made-to-measure suits in the 60s. You know, they were apprentice boys who saved their money and they had suits made to measure by Italian tailors and things. So, you know, for us that was absolutely accurate. But the two gangs had to have a really different look, so that they had that black look with the Glen, you know, and then your gang, it was the tartan scarves, the leather jackets and all the rest of it.
Maybe each one of you can say what you were doing at the time and how you came to be cast in the film, if you can pass that memory test.
Hitting puberty.
Yeah. Happy days.
Yes, so I'll try and tell the story quickly. I was already at a theatre school in London, and I wasn't in the happiest of digs. And one day the mother took the phone off me and spoke to my mum, who's up there, and said, "Oh, he's not very happy at all. You must have pushed him into this. He leaves every morning with a tear in his eye." And so I said, "I'll need to go home and see my ma this weekend," and kind of put her straight on that. And the woman said, "Well, I'm not taking you to Euston." So I went to the school matron and I got £36, because as a child you could get between London and Glasgow in those days for £36. And my mum woke me up the next day, and apparently when I arrived, that was what my dad said, "Why didn't you tell them you were coming home?" And I said, "I did. I phoned from the station." And apparently the woman had phoned and said, "Tell him not to come back." So I was quite down in the dumps, and I thought my dreams of being an actor were all over and all that. And my mum woke me up the next day and said, "Away over to Springburn and see your pals at Toonspeak Youth Theatre. And that'll cheer you up." And I went over in the bus, and I walked in, and the guy that ran it said, "What age are you, Ian?" And I said, "I'm 13. He said, "Oh, there's a guy coming in today looking for a 13-year-old. And in walked Gillies on his first day of casting for Small Faces. And it took him 2 months to offer me the job. Apparently, is that true? You couldn't believe you'd met Lex on day one?
Oh, I thought I had, you know.
Right. 2 months. I thought it was true. No, it was, because I got offered the Demon Headmaster. Remember that kids show, the Demon? And I had to make a decision whether to do that or not, or hold out for this film, and I held out for the film. And I remember Gillies coming over and saying, "Can I get a contact details for you?" And I said, "Well, you need to phone my agent in London."
Follow that.
Story.
I auditioned, pretty much. No, I'd kind of done lots of TV before that, and I don't know how. I just got an audition, and that was my real hair at the end, I'm ashamed to say. So I'm kind of convinced that it's because of that I got the part. That, and I look a bit like this boy here. That's pretty much it.
I had to audition as well, and I just remember going in and meeting Pat Harkins and Gillies. And just as I'd walked in the door and said hello and got sat down, really nervous, Gillies ended up on the phone. He was probably talking to Ian or Ian's agent or something like that.
I had to audition as well, by the way.
he got pulled out, and I was just left in this room full of artwork and everything like that. And there was a big poster on the wall saying, "He tongs your bass." And Gillis walked back in, and I said, "Is that tongs your bass? Is it like seeing like all the water towers and everything all over Glasgow?" And he went like, "Yeah, what does that mean?" And I was left going, "God, I don't know, tongs, you bastard." And he was like, "Yeah, but is there nothing deeper?" Nothing. I was like, I couldn't think of anything. Like, I don't know. I think it just means that. And he went like, "All right." And Pat Harkins went like, "See, I told you, Gillis, it doesn't mean anything." And I was like, "All right, well, I'm in the right place." I just really relaxed and just enjoyed the audition for then on in. But that was my first memory auditioning for it and meeting them.
Billy and Gillis, how did you sort out the writing of the script together?
It was, well, I start, or would you want to start? I mean, I really don't believe in script formulae. I actually despise them as procedures, particularly as teaching procedures. But I would say if we gave it stages, it was subject, content, form. So the first thing we did, Gillis and I, was just exchanging ideas and anecdotes and fragments extensively. In this case, this is some time ago, so it was by fax, not email. And just exchanging notes extensively.
You never sat in the same room?
No, but he was in London, I was in Sydney, then he was in Los Angeles, and I was in Italy. So that's how we proceeded. The next step for me was that I took away the notes to a little hut in the south coast of New South Wales. And the difference between decisions and ideas. So I made the decision to concentrate on 4 principal characters and then define the secondary characters. For each of the characters, I wrote a 1-page character analysis, and I did find that once the 1-page character analysis had been written, that we were already looking at several limited dramatic potentials in the narrative, in which case, at that point, I gave it back over to Gillis. He did the work, we made the deletions, we made the accretions, and then it went back to me, then back to Gillis, then back to me. And that was pretty much the process.
Well, I would just say, I mean, the other part of it, which I think was particular to this film, as opposed to other films that I've been involved with, is it was very organic,
Yes, it
real
was.
quality. That is to say,
Yeah.
the mother in the film is very much like our mother. She sings the same kind of Gaelic song as a Scots woman would, as a Scots lowland woman would. She actually looks like her mother. The parties that are having there, I mean, we had an uncle who fell into the Christmas tree every Christmas, and there's so many details. I mean, there are so many details. And anyway, in the end, it's not about gangs. The film is not about gangs, The gangs are certainly a trauma. I mean, in a way, we were just talking earlier about how, in a way, one managed to expel some of this trauma that you go through as a teenager growing up in that environment by making the film, But it's not about that. It's really about, this character who's drawn between the light and the dark. I mean, that's to say, he's got a kind of creative kind of possibility, or he's going to be destroyed. And, the power of the Bobby character is that he's pulling both his other brothers to hell with him. So that's what it's about, The gang thing is the...
I don't really agree with that, actually. I don't agree with that, because it's also about a kind of, I don't know how we explain it, sort of Norman Mailer-esque exploration of the relationship between the exuberance of violence and the creativity that can cohabit that experience. So for me, it's not a moral lesson in the least. And if it was a moral lesson, it would be a far less good film.
Listen, I'm not talking about a moral lesson. It's not a morality. Fight! I mean, but seriously. I mean,
seriously.
That one thing we did agree on, we're absolutely both clear, it is not a coming-of-age story. And every time anyone described it as that, we both shut up.
I thought it was.
I said on the radio the other day that it was a coming of age story.
Oh, can't believe what you hear on the radio. Gentleman right there in the front, a mic will rove its way towards you.
Hello there. You mentioned the detail there in the movie, and I couldn't help, loving the detail of some parts of it. For example, the feet in the bed. I remember being a young boy seeing beds like that. But what I'd like to mention is there was a poster of the Incredible Swing Band in the movie. Now, would Charlie Sloane really have liked the Incredible Swing Band, or was that a case of an influence of yourselves just trying to get it in there?
Charlie Sloane was kind of modelled on a legendary gang leader who had a library and did steal the books and had that whole thing. I mean, I remember one night going into a bar with a couple of pals of mine, one of them here tonight actually, who were apprentices. And being apprentices, they knew the gangs, So I got talking to the leader of this gang. I was talking to him for a long time, about an hour and a half. We were talking about Ho Chi Minh. It's amazing how well informed this guy was. And, I felt like I was talking to somebody at art school. At the end of the conversation, he pulled a bayonet out of his trousers and he said, "We're going to Locarno to get the tongs, you coming?" Well, I said, "Actually, it's an art school dance tonight, so I went to the art school dance." But I mean, these characters were really quite interesting, but he was based on a real character.
Also for me, he's based on a real character which Gillies didn't know, and this guy was about 2 years older than I was, and at one point he tried to throw an empty wine bottle through my parents' window when I was 16. But he was also famous for the fact that he had a huge library and he could quote Bob Dylan lyrics extensively. And then he got it into his mind that I've stolen his Levi jeans, and that was the end between he and I. So this was also based on a real character who was all too much part of my life.
Kevin, looking back, hi Kevin, just so that you're still there. Given the 20 years that we're sort of celebrating today, where does Small Faces kind of figure in your career in terms of the place it holds for you, or what it meant at the time, or when people come and talk to you about things that you've done, does it come up often, or is it in Scotland that there's the greatest affection for it, or?
I remember near the end of filming, of doing the film, of doing Small Faces, I remember Gillies saying to me that this guy called Danny Boyle came up to Glasgow to recce, this Irvine Welsh film. And am I right, Gillies, that he asked to come in and have a look at some dailies and all this kind of stuff, or did I make that completely up?
No, I remember that Kevin and Danny came up to our production office, so that's probably correct.
Right. And I remember Danny saying to me, "Oh, we saw some of your dailies and blah, blah, blah." So, Small Faces, for me, it was such a brilliant experience just working with these boys and actually feeling like the first film you do really is, it's a real film, it's not some piece of fluff. At that time, in the 90s, I don't know, it was a lot of the British films felt a bit fluffy and a bit silly and a bit, or style over content. And it really felt, and I think we, even as young people, we all felt that this film actually really means something. It was vibrating on a different kind of level to other films that were going on at the time. And I remember when we came to the Edinburgh Film Festival and we went to see it that night, it really felt just really special. And I felt very proud, and I still do,
Great.
I mean, I actually found watching the film, because, you're a bit not sure. It's 20 years ago. You go, how are you going to feel? Actually, I felt incredibly involved in the film, watching it again. Incredibly kind of caught up with it, in a very personal way. But, the scene which to me is the absolute centre of the film, and it has to do with this heaven and hell thing, if you like, this idea of heaven and hell, is the scene where he crosses over into Tongland, and you've got all the puddles, and the sky is so kind of bright and cloudy and reflected into the water, and little Gorbals appears and walks towards you, and you say, "Where's Tongland?" And he runs. For me, that's the absolute centre of the film. There was something about, because we talked about it in these terms, we said that this is the land between heaven and hell, if you like, you know. And he's the little kind of apostle of hell when he appears, Gorbals. And just visually, because the sun was so bright with the black clouds, and we soaked down puddles all through there, and then these two little figures in the smoke, that to me was the day, that was the centre of the movie.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, time has caught up with us. We must end there. But please join me in thanking Kevin McKidd in Los Angeles and the entire Small Faces team. Thank you.